On the review show tonight, David Bowie is back. The chameleon of rock seen through his own archive at the V&A, as his first album for 10 years tops the charts.
Stars are never sleeping.
So is it really an all-time high? The all-singing, all-shocking musical, The Book of Mormon, from the creators of South Park. Will it make many converts?
When the world is getting you down, there's nobody else to blame.
From director Francois Ozon, In the House, a study of obsession starring Kristen Scott Thomas.
Il y a des gens qui aiment ça.
Regardez par le trou de la serrure.
Plus, live in the studio, Claudia Brucken sings David Bowie. And tonight's pretty things, or scary monsters, are the author Ian Rankin, writer and critic Natalie Haynes, and the arts editor of The Telegraph, Sarah Crompton. Now, when Tilda Swinton asked David Bowie for a message to deliver to the star-studded opening of the new V&A exhibition, which is devoted to him, he said only 3 words, one of them testicular. A touch disingenuous, since Bowie has lent his own vast archive to the museum, which celebrates the myriad changes of Britain's most celebrated shapeshifter. Demand for tickets to David Bowie Is, which opens this week, is breaking all previous records at the V&A. More than 42,000 advance tickets have been sold, more than double of any previous exhibition.
Oh, you pretty things. Don't you know you're driving insane?
David Bowie Is brings together for the first time more than 300 costumes, curiosities and relics from a career that so far spanned 5 decades.
Let me make it plain. Gotta make
Everything from handwritten lyrics to set models, instruments to album covers is here. The first time Bowie has opened up his personal archives.
I had no idea that he had this archive, and when I first saw it, I must say, I really very nearly fell off my chair. It was so fantastic.
The exhibition shuns a chronological approach, instead choosing to present a collage of Bowie's world.
David Bowie is a pioneer, not just in music, but also in performance, in stage shows, in video. He channels the avant-garde into the populist mainstream, taking his ideas from very diverse sources. He has permeated our culture, and I think you can see here, he seems to be all around us.
And I'm floating in the most peculiar way.
Recorded music has never been easy to display in a museum setting, but the V&A was determined to create a rock and roll ambience with open headphones and 9-metre high video walls.
The first thing we did was look at who should design the show, and we went to theatre designers. We've actually taken a lot of the design inspiration in the exhibition from things like Bowie's own live performances or theatre and opera, rather than other exhibitions.
We may never hear what Bowie thinks of all this, but he's always known how to please a crowd while challenging the mainstream in music, art and style. Can this exhibition live up to Bowie's example? Now, Sarah, I've been obsessed with David Bowie since I was 14, so I think I'd have travelled a long way even to see, like, one jacket. But here we have access to his vast personal archive. And did you think it was just a collection of curios, or is there more revelations here?
Well, like you, I mean, I've been obsessed a long time, so it's like holy relics, really, that you follow them around and go, oh, that's the Serious Moonlight, or, oh, you know, and you look at all the different things and recognise them. I think, actually, its great strength in the exhibition is that it was curated by people who aren't music buffs, and they aren't particularly Bowie buffs. So they had the access to the archive, and then they went in and said, well, what are the really interesting things about this man? And why do people like you and me, who are obsessed with him, why are they obsessed with him? And I think they've drawn some very interesting conclusions. I mean, one of them being really about the theatricality of him, and of noting noticing that really he was the first pop star to be a serious theatre performer and to see music as a performance. And I think they built around that idea beautifully.
Which started, I think, very, very early on, didn't he? The influence of the mime artist Lindsay Kemp. And I think, Ian, you're part of the cult as well. What do you pick out from the archive?
Well, there's so much. I went round twice and spent about a couple of hours there. And every time I turned a corner, I saw something I'd missed the first time. So you really need to take your time over this. But, I mean, there was a lot of nostalgia. I mean, you know, for our age group, you're going to get a lot out of this because it's taking you back to a time when vinyl was king and when vinyl was an art form, where the record sleeve was an art form and everything that went with it, the performance, the TV performance, the shows. And what you get from this is a sense of the precision of the guy and the fact that his creativity was all-consuming. He wanted to design the costumes, he wanted to design the album sleeves, he shapes each show, he says where he's going to be standing at certain points, what the musicians will be doing while he's standing at those points and what costumes he'll be wearing at the time. He plans everything out in the most minute detail. It's extraordinary.
It does. It verges on control freak. I mean, there was even one handwritten bit where he'd written down the mileage between towns and one of his tours.
Yeah, there's some quite good handwritten notes. My favourite is for a literally solid piece of costuming, which looks like it is made of plastic, but I guess can't be. And he's carefully written, it should be easy to get in and out of. Good luck with that. I don't think it will be. But I said, I feel like I am slightly the wrong age for the Bowie cult. And I feel bad about it because I think I've kind of always assumed he was for other people. And this exhibition, although I had some reservations about it, did make me kind of see what the fuss was about. I think the problem is that the first records that were sort of being released that I remember were things like Under Pressure, easily one of both his and Queen's worst records, I would say. And so I came into the Bowie world at exactly the wrong point too. And so actually it was kind of nice to be able to go back and go, do you know what, I sort of knew this somewhere, but I didn't really feel it. And now, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm still more likely to go for a kind of heart musician than a brain musician, but I'd sort of dismissed the whole he puts on masks all the time thing as being not for me. And now I kind of think, actually, that persona thing, he's been doing it for a really long time.
Did you get a sense of why he does it, though? I mean, I wasn't sure about what made him that person. There's not an awful lot about the early life. There's not an awful lot about his days as a folk musician, for example.
No, there isn't. But there is that wonderful quote that you hear in your headphones where he says that he was always putting a book in his pocket to impress people on the commuter train up from Bromley into central London. And I think that's the key thing to understanding him, because he was this suburban boy coming into town with a book in his pocket, and his curiosity led him into such interesting places. And if you were following him, he took you into such interesting places, you know, to the music of Jacques Brel, into Brecht, into mime, to all kinds of things that actually in the late 70s were quite closed. They weren't really things that people were talking about at all. So I think it's that kind of innate curiosity that
yes, you get the sense of this sort of magpie intellectual brain.
I can see a lot of parents dragging their kids around to this exhibition and saying, oh, look, these are LPs. These are what we used to have in our bedrooms.
Yes, before the internet.
Yeah, exactly, before the internet. And this is handwritten lyrics. This is what handwritten lyric looks like. And the nostalgia thing, there was a kind of, I was quite sad at some points in this because I thought, we're not going to get this in the future.
Well, handwritten lyrics won't exist,
No,
will
exactly.
No,
they won't.
not.
And it'll all be video or it'll all be downloads. And we're not going to have album art the way that he did beautiful album art. We're probably nobody's got the money to put together the stage shows anymore.
But the costumes perhaps will continue. I mean, even if you think of people like Lady Gaga, that idea of, I had always simply assumed that there was a sort of secret David Bowie hidden behind all these different characters, all these different faces, all these different appearances. And actually, after going through the exhibition, I think actually that is him, isn't it? It's just that constant need to go, you can't see me, you can't see me, you can't see me, in a different way every day. That seems to me it's being carried on quite well.
Yeah, yes,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Persona in its literal Latin meaning, Martha Conley.
But that is the fascinating thing, that everybody thinks there is another person, you know, that there is a hidden person. But maybe there is, you know, you're right, that the sense of creativity, the sense of everything focused on, you know, just the sense of someone who's drawing all the time and thinking all the time. And when he's doing Diamond Dogs, he's not just thinking of an album, he's thinking of a stage show and a musical and a film.
And the album cover.
And the album cover, which he drew himself.
And everything part of this control freak. But I think the other thing the curators were very determined to do, as well as showing these myriad influences, was also to celebrate the rock musician, because I think they've had an exhibition in the past, I think it was called Rock and Roll Photographs, and one of the reviewers have said they managed to take the rock and roll out of the photographs. Right. But here, in that huge space that we saw in the VT there,
you go through a couple of fairly standard exhibition-sized rooms, and then you emerge into this cathedral. That's what it is, a cathedral, with these huge video presentations, lots of places for people to sit down. You're surrounded by costumes. Sometimes you're a bit far away from the costumes. I want to get a lot closer and see how they were made and how they're put together. You're quite distant from them. They're quite high up, or they're way over there. But, you know, you're surrounded by this guy's imagery. Which I guess is what the fans want.
Well, come on, who doesn't want a 9-metre-high David Bowie singing heroes from every different incarnation of the song?
3 different
Or
ways.
is that only me?
But it is wonderful that you know, you do go through it and you've had this sense of him as a creative artist, and then finally they do literally put the music at the centre of the show, and it is just transfixing. And I felt really moved that because a lot of the film is in that montage is lost. It hasn't been seen before, and suddenly you remember what it felt like, you know, seeing him. And very often, if you were a fan, you were seeing him through film. I mean, you know, you saw him on TV, or you didn't get to the concerts, or I didn't get to concerts till much later. So suddenly seeing him again in this sort of Diamond Dogs face, a cracked actor face, you just remembered that kind of sense of excitement. I hope people who didn't know that, like you, will get that sense. It was quite exciting.
What you don't get, what has been airbrushed from history, is a lot of the collaboration. So there will be some Eno, because he likes Eno, but you don't get much of Angie Bowie. His wife, who was a big influence in his androgynous look.
Lab years,
you don't get much of that, and there are other, you know, you get some Mick Ronson, but the other Spiders from Mars might as well not exist. And yet they all added something to the sound, and he added something to the look.
You don't get much Iggy.
Well, you don't get much Iggy. You get a painting that Bowie did of Iggy, and of course you don't get much about the drugs, although you do get his cocaine spoon, which was an interesting choice of exhibit.
That he'd held on to in his personal
life.
And weirdly, no photograph of him giving a kind of Hitler salute as he arrives at Waterloo Station.
I thought that was an interesting omission, because even though that incident is disputed, we could have learned about why it was disputed or not. I thought that was an interesting omission myself. Well, the exhibition runs until the 11th of August, but we're not leaving Bowie just yet, because his new album, his first in 10 years, shot to the #1 spot last weekend. In fact, it's the fastest selling of the year so far, having shifted over 100,000 copies in less than 2 weeks. So while the V&A's retrospective looks back over the rock legend's half-century in music, the new album suggests that the man himself isn't yet ready to rest on his laurels. The Next Day has been hailed as the best comeback record of all time.
You never knew that I could do that.
The announcement of Bowie's return came as a big surprise, as all those involved had been sworn to secrecy. The first single from the album, Where Are We Now?, was released on Bowie's birthday in January, and sees him reminiscing about his Berlin years.
I remember the Straßen, a man lost in time near Cardiff, just walking the dead.
Elsewhere on the album, Bowie, now 66, meditates on mortality in I'd Rather Be High and How Does the Grass Grow.
I gaze in defeat at the stars in the night. The light in my life burns away. There will be no tomorrow. Then you sigh in your sleep, and meaning returns with the day.
The second single, The Stars Are Out Tonight, is his take on celebrity culture, and the video stars Tilda Swinton and Bowie himself as a suburban couple whose lives are disrupted by noisy neighbours.
Behind their tinted windows stretch, gleaming like blackened sunshine. Stars are never sleeping.
Bowie fans have had a long wait for this new album. So is the next day a triumphant return to form from one of rock's greatest heroes? Or has the starman fallen to earth during his long musical hibernation? When the single came out, Where Are We Now, it was so wistful and so elegiac that you could have imagined this is what the entire album was going to be like from a 66-year-old man, but quite a surprise.
Yeah, because it was very brittle and his voice didn't seem to be at its best, and you thought, this is an album from an old guy who's, you know, thinking I better make one more record before I go, fading into the darkness. And you get the album, and from the very beginning it's rock. It's quite hard rock in the guitars. He's working with Errol Slick, who he's worked with in the past. He's got Tony Visconti producing. He's working with people he knows really well. He knows the kind of sound they're going to get for him. And it's a very confident sounding album. And that single is a misstep in a way, because it's unlike anything else on the album. It's looking back to the Heroes, it's looking back to Low, it's looking back to the Berlin years. But the whole album in a way is, again, I've come back to this word nostalgia. There are kind of glimpses of his early periods. There's a little bit of English 60s psychedelia in one of the tracks, and there's a track that sounds like it could have come out of the 70s, and there's a track that sounds like it came from Berlin, and so on. And you're right to say that death permeates it. I mean, from the very opening song, he's saying, "Here I am, not quite dead."
Yeah, not quite dying,
and every song has got mentions of death, dying, or, you know, people that are on the verge. And you get this notion that, you know, 5 years ago, whenever it was when he had the heart attack, that's still having an effect on him right now. That's still what's foremost in his mind, is the legacy that it leaves behind. So there's a sense of him going back here throughout, he's going back to his roots and then moving forwards again.
And not only his own death or intimations of mortality, but one of the songs, Valentine's Day, I think prefigures perhaps a school massacre that's about to happen. I mean, there's sort of darkness throughout it.
Yeah, it is a very dark record. I think it's quite an ambivalent record. I don't ever feel like he sounds suddenly angry and then suddenly very wistful and then very melancholic. And it feels like he's pulling influences from that I don't think he's used before. The start of Dirty Boy sounds to me an awful lot like mid-period to late-period Tom Waits at the beginning, and then it gets through that bit, and then you go, oh, OK, we're back to a Bowie record. But actually, his voice sounds to me astonishingly unchanged over the last however many decades it's been. He sounds incredibly vocally in control, and that he's tried to make a record and succeeded, I think, in making one which manages to keep people guessing again and some more. I'm not sure if I think it's the greatest comeback record ever made ever since the dawn of time, which everyone else appears to be agreed on. But I guess, to be fair, I wasn't waiting for him to come back. I realised only recently that it turns out quite a lot of people I know have seemed to be in a room while simultaneously going, when will David Bowie bring out a new record? It's the only explanation.
I know, and this phenomenon.
I didn't know you were doing that. I always thought you were concentrating when I was talking for the last 8 years.
I've been dreaming about David Bowie, and apparently that is quite a phenomenon. A number of people. No, I'm not alone. I was particularly interested in his take on celebrity in The Stars Are Out Tonight, where he was putting himself on the other side of celebrity, looking at the stars.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a sort of classic Bowie track that it's elusive. He's a celebrity, he's looking at the other celebrities, he's talking about the celebrities who are famous since he stopped being a celebrity, sort of. And then it's also got, you know, planetary stars. I mean, I think, you know, the richness of it, this idea that the stars are out forever, and that you want them to be radiant and you want them to die. It's lovely. And he wears a mustard cardi and gets away with it in the video, which, you know, it's very
nasty,
classic.
But he's a man who's worn a knitted catsuit and gets away with it.
I think the interesting thing about the album is that I think it is so much retreading a lot of thoughts that he's had, and I think particularly from that sort of great period between Low and Lodger, of looking back at that, but using some sounds that he discovered later. And what I like about it is that what I've always liked about his music is it has this capacity to be melancholy and make you want to dance at the same time. And I really feel that that was sort of part of the secret of his success, that he could examine quite big themes and quite pessimistic themes, and then just pull you round all the time with this little moment of sort of hopefulness. And so it's a mixture of the dark and the dancing that I think makes him so grand.
I mean, good luck. I'd love to see you dancing to the final track on the album, which is a sort of homage to Scott Walker. It's a very strange, very sombre, very weird song.
Now, Ian, you were talking about partnerships earlier on, and of course this is the partnership with Tony Visconti, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, I was very excited when I heard that Tony Visconti would be producing it. I was very excited about the whole project because he'd managed to keep it secret from you know, from our technologically advanced system where everybody knows everything about everybody all the time, especially if they're in the public eye. And somehow for 2 years he managed to hide from the world that he was recording an album in New York. How did he do that? And then, you know, nobody got any notice that the video was going to come, the single was going to come. When the album sleeve was shown on, I went, this has to be a joke. This can't possibly be the final sleeve. It's you know, it's Heroes with just a big bit of white in front of it.
Yes, it's almost
and then
like
when you go to the exhibition, you see all the other ones that he tried, and he tried a lot of his albums, and he tried to just mess them up a bit.
But this is, in a way, a very clever marketing ploy, isn't it?
Really
you know, it's nothing
really
for a very
worked.
long time, and then before the big exhibition, the album comes out.
Yeah, I have to be honest, there have been moments in the last couple of weeks where I've assumed his PR had pictures of someone's kids. You just go, how is this happening? You're in every paper all the time.
Yes, and why didn't this happen with other... I mean, Heathen, I thought was a very good album, and
yet,
didn't happen then. There's something about the moment now, isn't
I think
there?
it's probably because he did that thing which happens to rock stars when they get ill, or there's a moment where people think they will die. In 2004, I think, when he had a heart attack, and everybody went, oh my God, well, that's it. And then nothing happens for ages, and the odd quote comes out saying, oh, you know, he sort of looked mortality in the face. What do you think he's going to do? Make another record or spend some time with his kid? And you go, oh, yeah, sorry, how selfish of us. Sorry, David Bowie. And then it turns out that that's what everyone was waiting for. We were waiting for the obituaries, and then we got a record, and everyone kind of went,
And it's a nostalgia thing again, because it's you know, it's this guy that a lot of us grew up with, and it's you know, the album as a thing, you know, some of the best ones at the moment are being made by the old guys.
Okay, well, let's move on now, and thank goodness we got the album rather than the obituary. Now, you may have noticed that